The Two Jin, Sway, and Tang Dynasty's keywords of the novel. Tang Dynasty Idle Person No Pop-ups, Tang Dynasty Idle Person TXT Complete Collection Download, Tang Dynasty Idle Person Latest Chapter Reading. Open a new book and chatter according to your usual routine. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Not seen in a day, like 3 autumns apart, not seen in 2 months. How long will it take? Let's calculate first. Anyway, I just want to die for you. In fact, the new book should have been published long ago, but because there were many openings written earlier, I was not very satisfied and kept making changes, so I have been procrastinating until now. Here, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Nonsensda and the goddess Vinny for their tireless feedback. So, those who thought I was desperately trying to save manuscripts are really guessing wrong. They changed end themes and end openings, saving manuscripts. Sigh, they never had a fate with me. But I am stable, this is true. Let's first talk about Old Book, also known as the Little Chef of the Northern Song Dynasty. The Little Chef has filled in every hole with 7 million words, and the ending has been designed long ago without too many regrets, which can be considered a perfect ending. The only slight reduction is Li Chi's development after going to Japan. In the initial calculation, it was necessary to write, and there was indeed content that could be written. However, he felt that the word count was too many, so he omitted it. However, the basic structure has already been established, and he can write it any time he wants, so he may take some time to write Japanese side stories to make up for this deficiency. Speaking of the new book is still history, with a background of the Tang Dynasty. Compared to the Song Dynasty, the model has actually been fixed. Simply put, it is the peak history of Confucianism and the world of scholars. However, in the Tang Dynasty, there is no fixed model, and many things have not become systematic. National construction, flourishing, civilized culture, diverse, politically enlightened, fashionable, and there are many places to write about. Personally, I think it is a very exciting era, but I did not choose the Zhongguan era because I do not like to write about 2 wise monarchs, because with the intelligence and dark belly of Li Shimin, my style, I may write about the protagonist. I wrote it into a dead end. I personally prefer emperors like Emperor Huizong of Song, who are promiscuous, emotional, loyal, and have a high tolerance for mistakes. The most important thing is to act boldly. Of course, in terms of the emperor's profession, Emperor Gaozong of Tang is much more wise than Emperor Huizong of Song, and he definitely does not look as handsome as Emperor Huizong of Song. I am certain of this, but due to the presence of Empress Wu Zetian and Changsun Wuji, power is still very scattered and not a single dominant family. Therefore, the arrival of the protagonist can bring a lot of uncertainty. Firstly, the country was relatively peaceful during this period, and secondly, political struggles were very intense, as well as ethnic, hierarchical, patriarchal, and feminist struggles, which are more suitable for my style. As for the protagonist, he is a scammer. The introduction has been beautified a lot, and of course, his facade skills need to be improved. He is a master of 1,000 gates, but ultimately, he is still a scammer. However, a scammer who does something and doesn't do something is theoretically a kind scammer, but in reality, he is just a scammer. It depends on whether he is deceiving others or himself, just go to hell. Let's talk about the urban novel that I promised before and now. It is a novel that focuses entirely on food, and the background is directly borrowed from Master Li's background in later generations. As I mentioned earlier, this urban novel was conceived simultaneously with Little Chef, but I chose to write Little Chef first. I am very grateful for this decision. After all, it was Little Chef who truly brought me into this circle. Although it has not been published yet, I have been writing it all along and making revisions. This time, I also chose either option, and I still chose history. But the difference is that this time I may have a double opening. After all, I am a foodie with no money, and I can usually eat fried noodles, instant noodles, and so on. Sigh, it's just tears when it comes to talking about it. I don't even have the money to eat the truly delicious food, so writing about food has become an essential part of my mental nourishment. As long as I feel more stable and have enough energy, it is highly possible to have a double opening. Everyone can rest assured that Xiaoxi's character is quite guaranteed, and I hope not to let the foodies wait too long. Finally, I would like to say that there may only be one shift in the next 2 days, and the rhythm of 2 shifts will start on Monday. It's okay to rest, but I still hope that everyone can cast more recommendation votes, give more clicks, and let the idle person make it to the list. If there are rewards, it would be even better. Xiaoxi is not easy either. Please, everyone. Requesting recommended tickets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It is said that one must get tickets early. I am stuck at this early morning to get recommended tickets. There are too few recommended tickets now, and the distance from 1000 is too far. Looking at Xiaoxi's 7 million word book on integrity, handsome and beautiful, please pass the time. About update time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Starting from today, the changes to the first chapter will be sent out at noon. By the way, this book really needs support from collectors now. Chapter 1. This is not a scam. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The full moon is in the sky, and the bright and gentle moonlight falls, as if spreading a layer of white mist on the earth, adding a hazy beauty. A cool night breeze belonging to late summer blew by, and the rustling of leaves shattered the tranquility brought by the moonlight. There is a small village called Mei Village on the outskirts of Nancheng in Yangzhou, located in a remote area with only about 100 households. It was already midnight, and the surroundings seemed very quiet, except for occasional frogs croaking in the field. But at the end of the village, a household was still brightly lit, with 2 large red lanterns hanging from the eaves of the door, and red cloth wedding couplets pasted on both sides of the tightly closed yet ventilated old wooden door. The front room was very rudimentary, with a broken low table, a rusty hoe, and a tattered wooden bed. However, the inside room was much better than the front room, with a brand new large bed and a freshly made red wardrobe. Moreover, the pillows, bedding, curtains, and other bedding on the bed were all brand new. If you don't look at the front room, you really think this is a well-thought-of family. At this moment, there was a woman sitting by the bed in a red long dress. Due to a red hood on top of her head, her face could not be seen, but her figure was exquisite and graceful. The red candles on the windowsill crackled, but they were particularly piercing. It is obvious that this household is having a big celebration today. This ancient poem is full of clouds. After a long drought, we meet the sweet rain. In a foreign land, we meet our old friends. On the night of the bridal chamber, the flowers and candles are lit up, and when we win the title of the Golden List. On the wedding night, one of the 4 great joys of life, only the lonely bride sat alone by the bed, listening only to the sound of red candles, but without the joy of a boudoir. It's really curious. Suddenly, there was a strong wind outside, with dark clouds covering and lightning and thunder roaring. Rapid lightning seemed to tear open the night sky. Duh. Duh duh duh. In an instant, there was another sudden rain, flying sand and stones. The 2 lanterns in front of the door instantly went out and shook violently. The candlelight inside the room also swayed incessantly, as if on the brink of death. After a while, I suddenly heard a hurried knocking outside the door. Someone outside shouted, "Miss Han, open the door quickly. Something big is going on." The bride, who had been sitting for a long time, heard the shouting outside and quickly stood up, lifting the red veil. However, she saw a stunning woman under the veil, about 25.6 years old. Her face was apricot eyebrows, her eyes were watery, her snowy skin was smooth, her cheeks were bright red, and a hint of charm was hidden between her eyebrows, making her even more charming and charming. Her slender waist was plump, her figure was tall and slender, and she was delicate and curvaceous. She was truly a great beauty. Click. The bride opened the door and saw a person standing outside, dressed as a farmer. When she saw the bride, she was taken aback. Although she had already seen her, she still felt a sigh in her heart that there was such a beautiful woman in the world. "Uncle Yang, how did you come? Where's Xiaoyi? Isn't he with you?" The bride didn't notice this person's loss of consciousness and looked around the door, speaking with a worried expression. The middle-aged man who called Yang Ershu was taken aback and regained his composure. His face showed a guilty expression, but he anxiously said, "The young lady is not doing well." "Xiaoyi is him." The bride felt a little uneasy and quickly asked, "What's wrong with Xiaoyi?" "Xiaoyi and brother Han were hit by lightning." "What?" "We had been celebrating for Xiaoyi at the tavern all along when we suddenly heard thunder and lightning outside. Xiaoyi and brother Han couldn't rest assured of you, so we parted ways early. However, on our way back, a lightning bolt suddenly came down." Before he could finish speaking, several lightning bolts fell straight down, followed by a deafening roar of thunder, as if indicating that something bad had already happened. In just one night, a huge change occurred in this household. The red lantern was removed, a white cloth was hung, and the wedding couplets were changed into mourning couplets. The bride also took off her bridal attire and put on mourning clothes. The joyful atmosphere suddenly turned into a sad atmosphere, and the joyful laughter also turned into a mournful cry. Great joy turns into great sorrow, only lamenting the impermanence of the world. Quickly, this matter spread throughout the village. The villagers couldn't help but discuss. "Ah, brother Han is really a tough person. His ex-wife gave birth to Xiaoyi and left, leaving them father and son to rely on each other. He is both a father and a mother, and finally brought Xiaoyi up. Now that Xiaoyi is about to start a family and start a business, how do you know? Who said it's not right? This old man is really not eye-catching. Brother Han is such a good person, why is his life so difficult? It's really unfair that those bad people live well." However, being able to survive was also a great blessing in misfortune, as it finally left a unique seed for the Han family. Now Xiaoyi is still in a coma, life and death are uncertain. You say this is really a cult. In Meitsuan for over 100 years, there has never been an incident where villagers were struck by lightning. Moreover, I heard from my husband that Xiaoyi drank a lot at that time, and it was Han Degu who helped him. The electric shock struck both of them, but Xiaoyi was completely unconscious and had nothing to do, while Han Degu was. Let me tell you, this was all brought in by the bride. How to say this? Look at that bride who looks like a fox spirit, you can tell at a glance that she's not a good woman. I think she's just a disaster star. As soon as she arrived, this cult broke out. Rumors and rumors, spreading more and more, become more and more evil, evolving from sadness and sympathy to schadenfreude, jealousy, and the saying of gods and ghosts. This kind of ignorant speech seems to have spread all the way to the 21st century. In simple terms, it is a repetition of the evolution of envy hate. What a pity. As the saying goes, trees desire tranquility but the wind never stops. This pouring rain lasted for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping for a moment. It wasn't until the 4th day, when the dark clouds cleared, that the sky gradually cleared up. The entire village seemed to have been washed away, and under the sunlight, the water shimmered, making it truly beautiful. As noon approached, I saw 3 or 4 village men walking towards the Han family while speaking, carrying some food in their hands. Before his death, Brother Han treated us all well. Now that he has left behind the young couple, Xiaoyi. We cannot ignore them. Of course. Don't say so much for now, let's settle Brother Han's affairs first. By the way, has the coffin been made yet? It's already done, we can put it in the coffin in the afternoon. That's good. Sigh, it's just that Xiaoyi is still. But just as I arrived outside, I heard someone inside shouting, don't touch me for now, okay? It's Xiaoyi's voice. Xiaoyi woke up. Several villagers all had a joyful expression on their faces. They quickly walked to the door and saw a 16 or 17-year-old boy holding his hands high with a surprised expression on his face. Across from him stood a woman in white, who was the bride. She looked at the boy in confusion and said, "Xiaoyi, what are you doing?" "Whoever is Xiaoyi, I say I'm not Xiaoyi anymore." The young man pointed at the young woman and immediately smiled, saying, "Ah. I know now, this must be a scam." "Humph. I said, beautiful woman, could you please be professional? How can you deceive people when you dress so conservatively? Let me teach you how to do it. First, get a V-neck and expose a groove. It looks like you have enough money. Oh, subtract 4/5 of the skirt so that you can at least distract the man's attention. Of course, for me, I can see things, but it's completely useless. You should go back and practice." A villager in front of the door exclaimed in surprise, "Xiaoyi, are you?" The young man looked up at the village man standing in front of the door and chuckled, "You've really invested a lot of money. Where did these people come from to get a trick? Oh, I know now. It must be that bastard Pete Zhu deliberately arranged to play with me. Oh, this is really a terrible situation. Long Tao. Pete Zhu." The woman and the village men were both confused, blinking in amazement as they looked at the young man. Ah! Suddenly, the young man covered his head with a white cloth and let out a painful scream. He felt countless images rushing into his mind, as if he had a split personality. Many things that didn't originally belong to him were frantically squeezed into his mind. His eyes were filled with fear, and he shook his head violently. Impossible, impossible, absolutely impossible. He covered his head with one hand and stumbled towards the door. "Husband." The woman hurried forward, perhaps she saw many villagers standing outside the door, so she paid more attention to her address. But this sound of husband made the young man furious and say, "Damn it, beautiful woman, you're really becoming more and more evil." "What husband? Labor and capital are an unmarried person, where are wives from? They are all a group of lunatics." The young man became increasingly angry as he spoke, and couldn't help but shout and curse. His face was grim, and his eyes were red. He suddenly pushed open the two village men standing in front of the door. The two village men were not paying attention for a moment and were pushed back a few steps by the young man. "Ah!" The young man suddenly let out a hysterical scream and ran out like crazy. "Husband! Little lady, don't worry, I'll help you catch up. P.S. Young seedlings require careful care from everyone, including clicking, recommending, collecting, and tipping. We hope everyone can actively support us. Can there be a little more dog blood in Chapter 2? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. To the west of May Village, there is a small lake with clear and bottomless water. Smooth pebbles lie quietly in the lake, and small fish can be seen swimming occasionally. A young man stood by the lakeside, looking down at the reflection in the lake. He looked at the green face, weak expression, and thin body, and his expression went from unbelievable, shocked, angry at the beginning to helpless and depressed now. Now what is inside this body is no longer the original soul, but a soul from a 21st century thief. Of course, the grand theft was self-proclaimed by him, in other words, he was a fraud. However, he specialized in deceiving some wealthy and unscrupulous people, so he had a bit of confidence to add the word xia before thief. I still remember that night when he and his friends had just completed a big order and brought back several $1 million from abroad. He rented a yacht and called 4 or 5 beautiful women to go out to sea for fun. The wind blew eggshells, wealth went away, and birds were at ease, which was his life motto. But who knew that while he was enjoying himself, suddenly lightning and thunder flashed in the sky, the sea surged, and a huge wave hit, and he lost consciousness. When he woke up, it was already 4 years into the Yonghui reign of the Tang Dynasty. At first, he couldn't believe it, but with the waves of headaches, countless memories flooded his mind, and when he saw the reflection in the lake, he realized that he had indeed traveled. He thought to himself and laughed, I didn't expect the bloody plot of the TV series to happen to me. Should I cry or laugh? At this moment, besides a bitter smile, he still smiled bitterly. I believe that no one can easily face all of this while traveling. But what if you don't accept all of this? Take the train back. There are no trains here. Only a bitter smile can be used to correct it. I can't even cry if I want to. Pop. Just as Han Yi was in a daze, he suddenly felt a slight pain from something hitting the back of his head. He turned his head, but there was no one behind him. He looked up and saw a 13 or 14-year-old boy sitting on the trunk of a big tree, at least 2 feet above the ground, dirty all over. His face was black, but it highlighted his bright and clear eyes, barefoot, and half of his right pants leg was torn off, as if bitten off by a dog, swaying his little foot. The little boy couldn't help but grin foolishly when he saw Han Yi turn around. Because he had already acquired the memories of this body's past, Han Yi also knew this little boy at this time. This little boy was also from Meitsuan. Before he was born, his father went on a military expedition, but unfortunately, his father never returned. It is said that he died in battle. His mother was already a bit stunned, to put it bluntly, slightly mentally disabled. Coupled with this stimulation, he became even more disoriented. Therefore, after the little boy was born, his mother did not give him a name. At the age of 6, his mother suddenly went crazy and ran out, accidentally falling off a cliff, and thus passed away. Afterwards, the little boy became an orphan, and the villagers called him a wild child. Looking back on these things, Han Yi felt some sympathy for this wild child. He only felt that he had a very similar background to himself, so he didn't blame him. He just asked, "What's up with you?" The wild child had a silly smile on his face and suddenly extended his right hand, with his middle finger and thumb folded together, and the other 3 fingers facing towards Han Yi. What does it mean? Is this the ritual of the Tang Dynasty? Han Yi looked a bit confused. Pop. Han Yi felt something hit his forehead again, lowered his head, and saw a small fruit pit. He was startled and flicked his fingers with divine powers. But regardless of whether it was his Pokémon or not, he knew he had been played with and raised his eyebrows, saying, "Are you playing with me, kid?" The wild child laughed again, but remained silent, as if telling Han Yi, "You guessed it right, I was just playing with you." Is he really, as outsiders say, an idiot? But an idiot can't play so accurately. Damn it, you came to bully me too. If I don't teach you a lesson, roll up your sleeves first and I'll go. How did he climb up so high? Ouch, ouch. Han Yi's eyes turned and suddenly he hugged his head, squatted down, and woke up in pain. The wild child saw it and put away his silly smile, with a hint of worry in his innocent eyes. At this moment, Han Yi suddenly grabbed a small stone from the ground and threw it at the wild child, "TNND, daring to play with me. He doesn't know how to flick his fingers, not just how to win more than less." The wild child didn't know that Han Yi, who had always been cowardly, was so cunning that his body couldn't help but fall back. "Be careful." Han Yi let out a scream of surprise. He was already in a bad mood before, and being played with like this would make anyone have a temper. But seeing this wild child about to fall, he couldn't help but feel very anxious and regretful in his heart. I saw the wild child with his legs hooked onto the tree trunk, head down. Han Yi threw all the small stones and dodged them, while flicking his middle finger. Pop. Han Yi was hit on the forehead again. "You little bastard." Han Yi was really angry this time. He bent down to pick up the stone and threw it at the little boy. But the wild child on this big tree was like walking on a flat ground, flickering and moving up and down, like a wild monkey. While dodging, he continued to use his pinky finger magic to attack Han Yi with fruit pits, and his bullets were flawless. The most painful thing for a man is not winning a shot. Day. This kid is a helper invited by the monkey, right? Han Yi quickly retreated, staying away from the big tree and pointing to the wild child, saying, if it's a man, don't hide on the tree. If you plant it, you'll have to fight it alone. The wild child was stunned for a moment, only to see him take a leap. Wah, damn it. You dare to jump down so high, you have your own strength. Han Yi's heart skipped a beat as he watched. But I saw the wild child suddenly reaching out his hands and climbing onto a lower tree trunk, borrowing inertia to leap again, landing steadily on the ground, grinning and looking at Han Yi. Damn it. There's always room for error, this kid seems to be even more powerful than Jackie Chan. Han Yi took a sudden breath of cold air, sweating profusely from behind, and a hint of regret appeared between his eyebrows. Although he had a better physique, he was older and Han Dashan had a relatively tall physique, which also inherited his father's height genes. Although thin and weak, he was still over 1.7 meters tall, and this wild child was only around 1.45 meters at most. However, with these two wild children, he really didn't seem to be able to fight. You should know that his body is still very weak now. But the words have all been spoken, how could we have to face it with a stiff shawl? Nowadays, Han Yi is not a coward. He clenches his fists, roars loudly, and rushes over. After all, he comes from a background of chivalrous thieves, so how can he do this without any skills? But the wild child took a step forward and suddenly looked sideways. He quickly ran back, climbed up a big tree, jumped up, and then jumped up another big tree. After 2 or 3 more jumps, he disappeared without a trace. Han Yi looked at the wild child fleeing like a mouse with a bewildered expression on his face. What was the situation? Is he scared away by my domineering aura? At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Xiaoyi, Xiaoyi." Han Yi turned his head and saw a village man in his 40s anxiously running towards him. This village man was Yang Lin, the good brother of Han Yi's father Han Dashan. Because he was the second in the family, everyone called him Yang Urge. Last night, he went to report a letter to the bride. To be honest, Han Yi still has some resistance to his current identity. The key is that he doesn't know how to face all of this yet. He can't help but furrow his brows and turn around to leave. He needs to be quiet now. But Yang Lin shouted after him, "Xiao Yi, it's not good. The prince of the city has come to your house to collect debts and even said he wants to take your wife to pay off the debt. Go back quickly. Damn it, why are all these bloody scenes? Did I really travel through time? I really feel like I'm acting. I really hope to have a director shout card." Han Yi stopped and suddenly felt an inexplicable sadness surge in his heart. He knew that this body was causing trouble, and he thought of that beautiful woman in his heart. He thought to himself, although I am not Han Yi from before, if that beautiful woman is abducted, I will definitely wear this green hat. No matter what I think, at least others will think so. How can I lift my head and be a good person in the future? This is not acceptable. At this point, he suddenly turned around, with a gloomy face facing Yang Lin. In Yang Lin's impression, Han Yi has always been a well-behaved child, to put it bluntly, a cowardly child. However, now Han Yi's gaze is frightening, not at all like Han Yi, and he can't help but be stunned. After a moment, Han Yi suddenly became strong and ran home. P.S. Thank you all for your support. The new book really needs to be collected, recommended, and clicked on, please. Chapter 3/Him. Cut him down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Starting from Monday, there will be official traditional 2 shifts. During the new book period, I am looking for recommendations, collections, clicks, tips, and all kinds of requests. Young Master Wang, Brother Han has just unfortunately been born. It's not kind of you to come and ask for debt. Aren't you bullying people? Before his death, Brother Han was still a hired farmer in your family. You are too heartless. What are you doing? What are you doing? What do you lowly people want to do? Either you make up for this debt, or you roll it aside for me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. I saw more than 20 people standing on the small open space in front of the Han family. More than 10 people were standing in front of the Han family, blocking the door. They were all dressed as village husbands, and 5 or 6 people were standing in front of them. The leader was a fat man in a blue brocade robe, with several thugs standing behind him. Although there were not many people, this fat man was very arrogant, pointing arrogantly at the village husband in front of the door and cursing. Forget it, they're not easy to mess with. Don't show off yourself, let's wait for Xiaoyi to come back before we talk. Because Meitsuan is not big and there are not many people, the villagers in the village are very united. Moreover, Han Yi's father Han Dashan helped many people in Meitsuan before his death, so many people stood up to fight against injustice. However, after this fat man's intimidation, their wives or elders around them couldn't help but feel a little timid, pulling on their relatives to not be too reckless. The chubby young master saw these village men starting to retreat towards both sides of the door, with a stronger smile on his face. His lustful gaze shot straight into the room, and he smiled and said, "Little lady in the room, don't be afraid. I, Wang Bao, have read poetry and books, and I am not an unreasonable person. As long as you can repay the money, I will not make things difficult for you." His tone was frivolous and very casual. There was a moment of silence inside the room. The chubby young master named Wang Bao said again, "Madam, why don't I come in and talk to you in detail? Everything can be discussed. If you don't speak, I'll assume you agree." The room remained incredibly quiet. Wang Bao stepped forward. The villagers on the side dared not speak up and cursed inwardly. Your Wang Bao is notorious for deceiving the good and fearing the evil, and no one knows. His father-in-law's body is not cold, and his husband is not at home. There is only one woman inside, so you should break into it. What kind of truth are you talking about? But I dare to mutter a few words in my heart. No one dares to step forward. After all, they are also people with families, and if it is not necessary, no one wants to provoke this disaster star. Wait a moment. Suddenly, someone behind said. Everyone looked up. It's Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi has returned. Han Yi walked over with a gloomy face. Although Han Yi returned, the villagers beside him had a worried expression on their faces. Everyone knew that Han Yi, like his father, was more honest, and even weaker than his father. How could he be a match for Wang Bao? You're back just in time, kid. Give me the money back quickly, otherwise, hee. Wang Bao glanced at Han Yi with a sideways glance, walked over with his stomach stretched out, and slapped him on the back of the head with a disdainful expression on his face. This greeting is quite charming and unique. Han Yi glanced at Wang Bao, touched the back of his head, and said foolishly, "Young Master Wang, please wait a moment. I'll go back to my house and get the money for you now." Wang Bao was taken aback and immediately said, "Do you still have money in your family?" Han Yi laughed even harder and said, Some. He glanced at the thugs next to Wang Bao and then at the village man standing on the side. Wang Bao's eyes flashed with disappointment, his head raised, and he snorted, "It's best to have money. Then go and get it quickly. I'm so impatient waiting." Han Yi remained silent and walked into the room. The village men on the side whispered, but from the expressions on their faces, it seemed that they didn't quite believe Han Yi could come up with the money, because they all knew that Han Dashan had already spent all his money to help Han Yi marry his daughter-in-law. After a moment, a panicked woman shouted from inside the room, "Xiaoyi, what are you doing?" Before he could finish speaking, Han Yi rushed out, holding a kitchen knife in his left hand and a firewood knife in his right hand. The kitchen knife pointed at Wang Bao and his face was grim, cursing, "Damn you, I'll kill you." Everyone was suddenly startled. Ouch! Wang Bao never expected that today's Han Yi would be so fierce, completely unprepared. His legs were so scared that he immediately used his shape-shifting and hid behind the thugs. However, the thugs seemed to have gone crazy and were also afraid, holding up their long and short sticks, trembling uncontrollably. Although there were many people on the other side, Han Yi was completely fearless. With a loud roar, he raised his sword and charged towards Wang Bao. However, Wang Bao and his minions kept retreating, as if they were already on the verge of escaping. This guy must be crazy. This stunned person is afraid of being horizontal, and horizontal people are afraid of being deadly. No matter how horizontal Wang Bao is, he is also afraid of Han Yi, who has already spared no effort. Xiaoyi. With a loud cry, a young woman rushed out of the door and hugged Han Yi from behind, eagerly saying, "Xiao Yi, stop it quickly. Get out of here, I have to kill this fat guy today." Han Yi struggled while shouting and cursing. It can also be considered that Wang Bao was unlucky to hit this gun, thinking that Han Yi was still that weak guy, but little did he know that Han Yi now used to be even more horizontal than him, a fearless master. No matter how hard Han Yi struggled, the woman refused to let go, and her strength was really strong. Han Yi tried her best but couldn't break free, and she wondered whether my current strength was too weak or this woman's strength was too strong. The woman tightly hugged Han Yi's waist with both hands and said urgently, "Xiao Yi, don't be impulsive. Put down the knife quickly. Murder is a capital offense. Now that the Han family has only one child left, if you have any more ups and downs, how can I explain it to your father? Tell me what the hell." Han Yi shouted, "They've all been riding on our heads and defecating, MD. I'm a despicable person. Even if I die today, I'm going to pull on this chubby guy. Let go of me quickly." But he was extremely anxious. "You silly girl, I suddenly got into trouble like this. These people must think I'm crazy, and they will definitely choose to run away. How could I possibly kill them? If you don't move away again, it will be terrible when they react." Wang Baogang was so scared that he was about to wet his pants. It was evident that Han Yi was being dragged down by the woman, and his heart couldn't help but feel relieved. When he heard Han Yi scold him for being fat, he became furious and hid behind the person, shouting and cursing, "How dare you scold me, young master? I want you to die." He then shouted at the previous thugs, "What are you fools still standing for? Why don't you teach me this crazy dog? What you're talking about is light and agile. This guy is clearly crazy, and if he can't take care of our little life, we have to explain it here." Those thugs are also conflicted in their hearts, and their numbers are not superior. After all, there are still so many village men standing here, and Han Yi was so fierce when he came up. It was obvious that he was going to fight against them. When he started, God knows if these village men will help. At least they haven't left yet. The key is that the other party has a knife in their hand, and these thugs also know that Han Yi was struck by lightning, and it is likely that his brain was damaged. If you go to fight with a crazy person, that's just a fool, isn't it? This is really too dangerous, so no one wants to be the cannon fodder, but they are also afraid of Wang Bao. They saw Han Yi being hugged by that woman again, and this was a good opportunity. They tacitly matched their eyes and immediately rushed over with a stick, but their steps were very slow and consistent because they all hoped that others could rush to the front. When life is at stake, no one is foolish. Damn it. I was really killed by this silly girl. Han Yi seemed really anxious this time, jumping and saying, "You silly woman, let go of me quickly. They're calling." During his speech, he also struggled violently, but accidentally, his creaking nest suddenly hit the woman's shoulder. Han Yi felt a huge numbness in his right hand, and the firewood knife in his hand fell. Pop. The woman was so agile that she suddenly reached out and grabbed the falling firewood knife. Her left hand thrust fiercely towards Han Yi's waist. Han Yi was unprepared for a moment and couldn't help but stumble a few steps to the right, almost avoiding falling. "I'm fighting with you guys." Before Han Yi could come to his senses, He saw the woman charging forward with a firewood knife in her hand, and the sound of "old lady" was full of momentum. Damn it! What situation? Han Yi's face suddenly turned surprised. Chapter 4. A knife at the beginning of color characters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Starting from Monday, we will officially start pushing for the top 2 rankings. Every click, every recommendation ticket, and every collection is very important for idle people. We hope everyone can support us, please. Don't do it, are you crazy? Hurry up and put down your knife. Murder is a capital offense, isn't it? You're the only one left in your family. If you have any problems, how can I explain them to your parents? Hurry up and let go of me, I'm going to fight them. At this point, there was a sudden 360-degree change in the situation. The woman was dressed in mourning, with a few strands of black-green hair scattered down. She held a firewood knife in her hand, with a fierce expression on her face, shouting loudly, like a crazy woman. Han Yi, on the other hand, tightly hugged the woman's slender waist and fought desperately to prevent her from rushing forward. The villagers on this side were watching with cold sweat streaming down their faces, stunned like a chicken. Since arriving in Matsuan, this woman has always been known to them as knowledgeable, gentle, kind, and beautiful. However, they never expected such a fierce side. It's not an exaggeration to call her a shrew. The thugs had already rushed over, but their target was Han Yi. Suddenly, when they saw the woman raise her sword and charge towards them, they were not mentally prepared for a moment, and were so scared that they rolled back and even took 5 or 6 steps back. This woman's strength is really great. Faced with the crazy struggle of this woman, who doesn't even count as his wife, Han Yi was really struggling. He cursed inwardly, saying that ancient women were all virtuous, and gentle. Why did I encounter such a fierce woman as soon as I came here? Is this fate going to kill me, or did I not learn history well? Because he had just woken up and had been in a coma for 3 more days. He had experienced a lot of emotional ups and downs just now, so his body was very weak. Now it has reached its limit, and he can't hold it anymore. He quickly called out, "Fatty, hurry up and leave. This mother-in-law is already crazy, and I can't bear it anymore. If you want money, come back another day." "Oh, good. We'll come again next time, so be careful of yourself." Wang Bao was already frightened. He quickly nodded, carrying 3 or 4 claws and teeth, and turned to prepare to run away. However, after running 2 steps, he suddenly stopped again. This sounded a bit strange, especially when it came from Han Yi's mouth. He couldn't help but turn around and look at the tugging couple at the door with a skeptical gaze. And his subordinates, facing the madman in this room, had already felt a sense of retreat. After all, Wang Bao would definitely not rush ahead. They must have gone to be cannon fodder. One of them said, "Young master, it's not advisable to stay here for a long time. Let's leave quickly." Upon hearing these words, Wang Bao became very angry and slapped him on the head. He opened his mouth and cursed, "You useless people, they are clearly intentionally scaring us. You can't even tell that." Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly heard a loud bang on his head. I saw a wooden knife nailed to the clothesline behind Wang Bao, and when it shook, it made a buzzing sound. Wang Bao immediately swallowed a mouthful and slowly lifted his head. His eyebrows were facing the sharp blade, and it was within reach. A drop of bean-sized sweat flowed down from his eyebrows. This was really a knife on the tip of a letter. The villagers opened their eyes wide and looked at the firewood knife in disbelief. "Damn it! You're a bit too fierce, right? I was just joking casually just now, you're taking it seriously." Han Yi was also frightened and broke out in a cold sweat. He never expected this young woman to be so fierce, much more fierce than him. She really wanted to kill someone. The person next to him trembled and said, "Master, it seems like they didn't intentionally scare us. Oh my, I killed someone. I killed someone. Wang Bao trembled all over and was immediately scared to the point of urination. He let out a howl and ran outside, his plump body suddenly becoming more agile. Fatty guy, don't run away if you have the ability. I'm going to kill you today. Although the beautiful woman had no weapons in her hands, she kept shouting and cursing incessantly. Just then, an elderly voice could be heard from a distance, Prince Wang, I'm sorry, I'm late. I saw an elderly man in his 60s, with white beard and hair, dressed in a grey-white Confucian robe, waving his hands and panting as he ran towards us. Mr. Su, you have come. Han Yi and his wife are conspiring to kill this young master. As soon as Wang Bao saw the old man coming, he quickly ran over and said excitedly. Ah! What did you say? The ear of Mr. Su seemed to be a bit uncomfortable, so he turned his ear and shouted, asking. I said someone wants to kill me. Wang Bao almost roared out, his chubby face turning red. What? Someone wants to kill you. Who is so bold and dares to act in broad daylight? It's really unreasonable. Su Lao's mouth froze wildly, his whole body full of righteousness, as if he were the embodiment of justice. It's Han Yi and his wife. Han Yi. How could this be possible? Upon hearing about Han Yi, Mr. Su shook his head in disbelief. Indeed, in the past, Han Yi was powerless and cowardly, daring not even to kill chickens. How could he dare to kill anyone? Who would believe it if he spoke out? Don't believe it, where's the knife? When Wang Bao turned around, the firewood knife on the wooden pillar was gone. He looked towards the door again and saw Han Yi sitting at the door, holding his hands back and panting heavily. And just now, the fierce woman covered her face in front of the door and cried, "Woo, my life is so miserable." With a mournful cry, she rushed into the room. It seems like everything that happened just now is an illusion. Oh my God! You left like this, right? What should I do? You caused this disaster, and now I don't have to bear it all by myself. It's too ungrateful to have agreed to kill someone together. Han Yi rolled his eyes, feeling extremely angry, but now he was almost exhausted and had no strength to dwell on these matters. Mr. Su glanced outside the door and looked at Wang Bao with a bewildered expression. What are you watching me do? They really wanted to kill me with a knife just now. Wang Bao was furious and pointed at the villagers, saying, these lowly people have all seen it. Those villagers look at the sky and the ground, but none of them stand up to speak. I can't provoke you, I'll just hide. You. Upon seeing this, Wang Bao was furious and thought to himself, oh my goodness, you dare to go against me. You guys will look good in the future. He shouted, I'll settle this with you in the future. Mr. Su, please be fair and ask the Han family to pay me back. Yes, yes. Su nodded repeatedly and walked slowly towards the Han family. Because Han Yi no longer had a knife in his hand, and Su Lao was here, Wang Bao was not afraid anymore. He looked up at his chubby face, crossed his waist with both hands, and walked forward with domineering steps, as if afraid that others might not know that he was very arrogant. I've met Mr. Su. The villagers saw Mr. Su walking over and stepped forward to salute him. This Su Lao, whose real name is Su Wang, is a native of Meitsuan and also a scholar. Because there are very few scholars these days, although Su Lao has been failing the exam for decades, it does not prevent the villagers from respecting him and calling him Su Lao. If there are any disputes in the village, please ask him to mediate. Because of his words, the villagers are very convinced. After all, he is a scholar and highly respected. In the surrounding area, he is also somewhat famous and can basically be said to be the village chief of Mei village. Before Han Yi could speak out, Yang Lin became excited and said, Mr. Su, you came just in time. Han's body was not cold yet, and Prince Wang came to rob someone. This is really bullying people. You have to be the master of our May village. Have you, these lowly people, ever read a book? It's only natural for you to pay off your debts. If you don't have money to pay back, you can use someone to offset your debts. How could you rob them again? Wang Bao's nostrils are facing the sky, his toes are high and his energy is high. Yang Lin snorted, we have lived in the same village as Brother Han for decades, and we have never seen him ask anyone for a loan of money. We haven't even heard of him. How could he borrow money from you? You have to ask him about this. Wang Bao widened his eyes and took out a piece of white cloth filled with words from his pocket. Look, look, this is the promissory note for borrowing money from Han Dashan. It has Han Dashan's handprint on it, and it is also notarized by Mr. Su. He said the villagers were shocked and looked at Mr. Su one after another. Su nodded and said, Dear fellow villagers, there is indeed this matter. Indeed, half a month ago, Dashan borrowed 700 won from the Wang family and promised to return the Wang family's usual money during the autumn harvest. The villagers looked at Han Yi again. MD, can I trust these memories? Han Yiwu was still sitting on the ground, wiping his sweat and chatting, it seems like this is happening. Chapter 5. Who dares to be worse than me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. 4,000 word big chapter delivered, tearfully seeking recommendations, clicks, favorites, tips, likes. As soon as Han Yi said this matter is definitely not wrong. Suddenly, many villagers exclaimed in surprise. Due to Han Dashan's willingness to help others during his lifetime, he never took advantage of others and was only taken advantage of. Not to mention the difficult things of reaching out to ask for money. When Wang Bao first came to ask for debt, they always thought that Wang Bao was fabricating facts with the aim of taking away this beautiful woman. However, they were shocked to find out that this was actually the case. The amount of money depends on how people come, and for those wealthy people, even a sneeze is not just that. But for the poor, every penny is extracted from the bone marrow, and now that they have just passed the Zhongguan period and are rich in material resources, relatively speaking, this money is equivalent to increasing in value because prices have become cheaper. The purchasing power of a penny in these years is equivalent to about 3 yuan in later generations, and it has always been more than 3,000 yuan. For these farmers, it is definitely a huge sum of money. Brother Shan, Brother Yi, I have been tricked by you. Han Yi had completely remembered that all the money was borrowed to prepare for the wedding, because Han Dashan was just a farmer and his family had nothing to ask for. Even if he saved money, it would be difficult to save money. However, this daughter-in-law was as beautiful as a fairy, knowledgeable and rational, choosing one from 10,000 miles. Of course, the impression of knowledgeable and rational had been completely shattered a moment ago. However, anyway, Han Yi's ability to marry this beautiful woman was truly a blessing from 10 generations of cultivation. In fact, based on the situation of the Han family, if Han Yi didn't work hard, he could have been single for a lifetime. Although this beautiful woman is several years older than Han Yi, her stunning appearance is enough to make people overlook this. Also, because Han Dashan is a very loyal and honest person with self-awareness, his inferiority complex makes him feel that this woman is willing to marry into their Han family, and he already owes a lot to this woman. Therefore, after confirming the marriage, Han Dashan felt that this wedding should not be embarrassing and should not mistreat this daughter-in-law. The father and son combined to borrow some money from the employer Wang's house, make some good clothes for the bride, and also make 2 new clothes for Han Yi. Han Dashan also thought about it. After the autumn harvest, he first took the collected rice to the Wang's house to offset the debt, and then went out to do some odd jobs. He would rather suffer himself than suffer his daughter-in-law and son. Han Dashan is definitely a great father. But who knew, encountering such a calamity? This is really heartbreaking. You still feel sad and urged, and I still feel sad and urged. Oh, I dare to travel here to help you bear your debts. Han Yining, don't think of these things. Did you hear it, did you hear it? Upon hearing Han Yi admit it, Wang Bao became even more unreasonable and didn't forgive anyone. You, straight mother thieves, are really blind and deserve to be a lowly person for a lifetime. He said as if not relieved, and then turned to Han Yi, you owe me money. How dare you use a knife to cut me off? I will calculate with you later, and now I will repay the money first. Han Yi felt anxious in his heart, but he still spoke very forcefully. The promissory note clearly stated that the autumn harvest was for repayment, and now there are still about 10 days left until the autumn harvest. Why are you in a hurry? What about the autumn harvest? Why don't you take a fart? Wang Bao chuckled and said, don't you know that all your fields have been washed away by the flood? You won't be so miserable. Han Yi really didn't know, and there was no such plot in his memories. He turned to look at Yang Lin and others. Yang Lin hesitated several times before nodding his head in difficulty. With a sympathetic expression on his face, he said, Xiao Yi, a few days ago, the heavy rain and the rising water of the Meha River washed away all your fields. Although our family has suffered some losses to some extent, it is your family that has suffered the most. What a double blessing. Han Yi wiped the corner of his eyes and said, who can lend me a knife? What do you want to do? Wang Bao was suddenly startled. Suicide. Han Yi smiled brilliantly. Among the more than 100 households in Mei Village, his family suffered the most losses, and it was his family who borrowed high-interest loans. Such a lucky thing had happened to him. He really suspected that if he stabbed himself to death, he would become an immortal on the ground, and there was no reason not to stab him. Xiaoyi, don't be impulsive. Yang Lin appeared very worried. Today's Han Yi was too unusual, as if he had completely changed his personality. If I don't act impulsively anymore, am I still human? Han Yi let out a roar, but then saw Yang Lin looking at him in shock and wiping his face, saying, I'm Mu Saorui. Wang Bao shouted, Hey hey hey, I don't care if you want to live or die, but if you want to die, you have to pay back the money first before you die. If you don't have money, you can use your wife to offset the debt. His evil gaze then glanced into the room. Although the woman went berserk just now and almost scared him to wet his pants, she was really beautiful, which made him even more tempted. If he could conquer such a woman, his sense of achievement would be full of drops. After hearing this, Yang Lin and others looked angrily at each other. You bastard, always thinking about putting a green hat on me. Han Yi cursed inwardly and said, even if my family runs out of food, we have to follow the loan agreement. If you want money, okay, come back after the autumn harvest. Wang Bao sneered and said, Han Dashan is dead, and your family's food is gone. What do you want to pay back? Han Yi snorted, if it's a big deal, I'll just give you the land. Wang Bao laughed heartily and said, are you foolish enough to be struck by lightning? Out of your 60 acres of farmland, 40 acres belong to the court. Now that Han Dashan is dead, your family's farmland should also be returned to the court, and 20 acres belong to my family. You're using my family's farmland to repay my debt. You're thinking too well, right? Wait, let me think first. Han Yi immediately searched for this information in his mind. Suddenly, 3 words came to mind. The equal field system. Because the Tang Dynasty was not long established and had a sparse population but abundant land, its territory was not small. In order to develop agriculture, the court adopted the equal field system. The equal field system, as the name suggests, refers to the equal distribution of land, which is a method of preventing land consolidation. The official policy is to distribute 80 acres of land for those aged 18 and above, and 20 acres of land for permanent use. The land for oral distribution is the land of the court, and the land for permanent use is private land that can be passed on to future generations and freely bought and sold. Of course, this is just an official statement, usually just listen to it. In fact, the situation is different. In rural areas with more land and fewer people, each person can be allocated 100 acres of land, but in areas with less land and more people, there is not as much land. For example, in the Guanlong area, where there is a large population, all major families are concentrated there, each family has thousands of acres of good land. Therefore, each Ding male can only allocate 30 acres of land, and there is no permanent land, because the land there is almost all in the hands of the Guanlong nobles except for those owned by the court. Although Yangzhou is not as populous as the Guanlong region, it can be considered a big city. Therefore, each Ding male in Yangzhou can only receive 40 acres of land, which belongs to the court and can only be cultivated, not traded. In fact, no matter what, the land in the hands of the people must not be too much, no matter how much idle land there is. Because if every citizen has 100 acres of land, who would still help the landlord's work, wouldn't they all become farmers? This is very unscientific. It is better to idle there than to give the people an extra acre of land. This is the thinking of the landlords, and it is also the reason why all dynasties have been unable to prevent land consolidation. It is not because there is not enough land, but because there are not enough people, no slaves. Where can landlords come from? In fact, the Han family originally had 20 acres of hereditary land, which was passed down from ancestors. However, during the Xinguan period, it was annexed by those big landlords. Although the court opposed land consolidation, it was not of much use. What needed to be merged was still merged. It is said that the 20 acres of land leased by the Wang family to the Han family were originally the ancestral property of the Han family. And Han Yi is not yet 18 years old, and it will take more than half a year. He is only 18 years old, so he has not been granted land at present. In fact, in this special situation, the government will handle it according to its own discretion, and ultimately Han Yi will be granted land. However, the problem is that the government cannot handle affairs for half a year. Moreover, as the autumn harvest is approaching, you will not be able to play with the land given to you. It is probably not until the end of this winter that the land will be distributed. Simply put, a heavy rain has left the Han family penniless. Who dares to be worse than me? Han Yi shouted in his heart. What a pity. Nowadays, Han Yi has never been afraid of anyone and must be the champion. But this is reality, the people will always be enslaved, because all rules are set by the strong. Although Han Yi's heart was getting cold, his face was still Mount Taishan's face. This was the basic quality of a liar. At any time, he could not let others know what you were thinking. He said, even so, so what? You should collect money, okay, and come back when the time comes to pay back the money. Wang Bao sneered and said, what if you run away? Now that you have nothing left, there is a high possibility that you will run away. As a high-interest loan, it is not unreasonable for him to come early to collect money, because the promissory note originally stated that the autumn harvest would be used to offset the debt with grain, but now the Han family's grain has been washed away. Anyone with a sense of responsibility will come to ask for debt in advance. What should the other party do if they run away? So when Wang Bao heard that the Han family's land was washed away by the flood, he was extremely happy and hurriedly brought people over. This guy is a weakling, isn't he? The Labor Management Association. Wait. Running away is really a good choice. Anyway, I also enjoy the life of being a family from all over the world. Although Han Yi thought so in his heart, he said on his lips, since that's the case, can I also charge you with murder? Wang Bao shouted, why are you? Just rely on tomorrow. Tomorrow. If you kill me tomorrow. Why should I kill you if you don't spit blood here? How do I know? I was just saying, in case. Oh, can you just say, in case I run away tomorrow? Can't I just say, in case you kill me tomorrow? You're too bullying, right? You. Wang Bao's blocked fat face turned red. Han Yi suddenly put another hand on Su Lao's shoulder and said, besides, there is also Su Lao, a notary public. If you don't believe me, you have to trust Su Lao. Wang Bao glared at Su Wang with a hint of threat and said, Su Lao, do you want to guarantee him? The notary public only concerns the authenticity of the promissory note, but the guarantor has to share the debt, which is a different matter. Ah! Su Wang appeared somewhat stunned, completely unaware of what they were saying. Of course, he also ignored Wang Bao's threat. He was a bookworm who didn't understand what a threat was. Han Yi hurriedly said, aren't you talking nonsense? A knowledgeable person like Mr. Su, who is talented, knowledgeable, and full of knowledge, is naturally not a problem when those sages talk about acting bravely, fighting the strong and supporting the weak, and practicing justice for the heavens. It has to be said that Han Yi, a knowledgeable person, is quite right. Su Lao was so happy to hear this that he couldn't even close his mouth. He even nodded, almost not helping Han Yi repay his debt. Ku also said, be brave and righteous, eradicate the strong and support the weak, and do justice for the heavens. Is this what the sage said? Han Yi remained calm and said, besides the sage and Mr. Su, who else could say such righteous words? It makes sense. Su Lao nodded shamelessly. He was already old and had been reading for decades. Even the smartest person would be foolish and unable to turn his mind around. This invisibly helped Han Yi secure a guarantee. Han Yi finally understood why Mr. Su couldn't pass the exam. Wang Bao also saw that Su had fallen in love with Han Yi's words and was about to speak out to remind him that Han Yi would not give him this opportunity. He kindly looked at Su and said, Su, you see, we all agreed in advance when we will repay the money. The promissory note clearly states that Wang Bao came here early to ask for money, and you said to sue the government, who is taking it. After thinking for a moment, Su nodded and said, of course you're taking care of it. Han Yi looked at Wang Bao and said, did you hear me? If you want to force yourself, then I'll have to go all out. Anyway, I'm just a lowly person, and no one will lose out on anyone who sits under my coffin. Alright, you kid has guts. Wang Bao pointed at Han Yi and gritted his teeth, but he was still a bit afraid because Han Yi's behavior today was too strange and he had no confidence in himself. Moreover, with Su Lao on the side, he could only put down his words and say, if you can't pay back the money then, I must make you look good. Let's talk about it later. Han Yi smiled lightly. Let's go. Wang Bao left the Han family in a fit of anger with a bunch of claws and teeth. Because during this period, the culture of Zhongguan is still being continued, and the laws are still very strict. It does not mean that these landlords are reckless in killing and robbing people, but they will also be afraid of the government. Because the backgrounds of the current officials are very impressive, but if Han Yi does not pay the money by then, this woman will definitely be abducted by Wang Bao. In fact, in the end, the law to a large extent protects the interests of these landlords. Chapter 6. Ladies of the Great Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Crying for recommendations, collecting, clicking, tipping sigh. Although Wang Bao had left, Han Yi couldn't be happy. It seemed like he had changed the execution to a death sentence with a reprieve. If he didn't pay the money by the deadline, Wang Bao had reason to demote him to a slave. No one could save him because the Tang Dynasty was still a semi-slave and semi-feudal country, and many people were demoted to slaves because they owed money to landlords. Slaves. The kind of person who can only endure being exposed to chrysanthemums. Just thinking about Han Yi scared me to wet my pants. When Han Yi turned around, he found a group of villagers staring blankly at him. Today's Han Yi is really different. He is brave, calm, and fearless of power. It's really cool. If it were Han Yi from the past, he would probably have been scared to the bottom of the bed long ago, and he wouldn't dare to show his head. It's just two extremes. In fact, Han Yi understands this in his heart, and he knows it better than anyone else, but he can't say that the current Han Yi is no longer the same as before, and no one will believe it. He arched his hand and said, "Thank you so much for your help just now, uncles and uncles. I really have no way to repay you. He was not polite, he wanted to repay, but he was so poor that he really had no way to repay. Oh, Xiaoyi, you'll see that out loud. Han treated us well before his death, and that's what we should do. Xiaoyi, don't worry, the Han family's business is our everyone's business. Not bad, Xiaoyi. We will definitely help you. Everyone spoke out to comfort Han Yi. Touching. It's really touching. What is true friendship in times of adversity? This is it. Upon seeing all of this, Han Yi was immediately moved to tears. Hot tears rolled in his eyes, indescribable. For the first time, he felt that ancient times were really good, and the people of ancient times were truly kind. He choked up and said, "Can you all lend me money?" Silence. The villagers who were just enthusiastic fell silent in an instant. Sigh, it seems that I overthought it. Han Yi pretended to smile casually and said, "I'm joking. This little money won't make it difficult for me, Han Yi." It turned out to be a joke. The villagers decisively believed Han Yi's words and breathed a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Han Yi would come and ask them for money. It wasn't because they were stingy and didn't want to help Han Yi, but because of the flood a few days ago, they also suffered big and small losses. Moreover, they were all poor people, living very frugally. It was like walking on the edge of a cliff, there might be no food at any time, and there was no money to lend Han Yi. Every family has a difficult book to read. However, those villagers still said that Han Dashan's funeral was fully covered by them, and they didn't have any money, so they still had the strength to do so. For Han Yi, this is already a timely help, and I am particularly grateful in my heart. In the afternoon, everyone worked together to put Han Dashan's body into a simple coffin that was only made up of a few wooden boards. They comforted Han Yi a few words and told him to be buried tomorrow, and then left one after another. After seeing off the enthusiastic villagers, Han Yi returned to the house and stood in front of Han Dashan's body, stunned and lost in thought. After a long time, he suddenly became extremely excited. "Brother Shan, why aren't you a wealthy person? If you were an old man with money and power who could help his son get a dozen concubines, that would be great, so that I could taste the taste of a wealthy second generation. Oh, it seems that I don't have this fate. After living for 2 lifetimes, I will still be a pure second generation, even purer than TM99999 gold. Xiaoyi, what is *** silk?" Accompanied by a pleasant voice, the woman walked out of the inner room. Han Yi glanced at the woman, and now he completely remembered her. Her surname was Xiao Mingyun, and she was picked up by Han Dashan from the road 3 months ago. When Han Dashan went up the mountain to chop firewood, he saw Xiao Yun unconscious on the roadside, so he saved her and brought her back. According to Xiao Yun herself, she was originally from Bazhou and her family was engaged in business. Originally, she wanted to come to Yangzhou to do business, but on the way, she encountered bandits and all her relatives died. She escaped alone. Han Dashan was really kind-hearted. Although he was almost unable to support himself, he eventually took in Xiao Yun. So Xiao Yun stayed at the Han family and later taught Han Yi how to recognize characters. Han Yi also listened very much to Xiao Yun's words and stayed by his side all day. He probably forgot his own surname and studied more seriously than he did with Su Lao. The two of them seemed to get along quite well, and Xiao Yun appeared to be knowledgeable, reasonable, and a lady from a wealthy family. Han Dashan then thought about letting Xiao Yun marry Han Yi. In fact, at the beginning, Han Dashan only occasionally thought about it and thought it was just a daydream. After all, their family was too poor, and Xiao Yun was simply the embodiment of beauty and wisdom. There was no problem in flirting with a wealthy second generation, an official second generation, or anything like that. The gap was really huge. Of course, at that time, Xiao Yun did not use a knife to attack anyone. Han Dashan thought in his heart that Xiao Yun would definitely not agree, so he had been thinking for a long time, but he never said this until one time. Han Dashan accidentally probed from the side, but unexpectedly Xiao Yun agreed without saying a word. At that time, Han Yi was so happy that he fainted in the past, obviously because he had woken up early and had a lustful heart. Han Dashan was also very happy and immediately arranged for his marriage, which gave him the opportunity to borrow high-interest loans. However, because Xiao Yun is older than Han Yi, he has always been called Xiao Yi. Although he is already married, he still cannot change his mind for a while. Han Yi thought to himself that a mother named Zhang once said, "The more beautiful a woman is, the more dangerous she is." With this woman's appearance, she should belong to the category of nuclear weapons. Besides, as an unmarried person, being a canon friend is still acceptable. It's scary to think about being a married couple. People like me who have no money, land, or parents are collectively referred to as **C, she said in a very plain tone. Xiao Yun didn't understand what Han Yi was saying at all and asked with concern, "Xiao Yi, what's going on with you today? Why are you different from your usual self?" Han Yi sneered, each other. Xiao Yun exclaimed in shock, "So you also pretended before? Put on some fur, I'm not Han Yi from before, right?" Han Yi's eyes widened and he took a deep breath. "What does it mean to be pretending?" "Alright, I dare say that your previous gentleness were all pretending." "I'm not pretending, I'm already a lady from a wealthy family." Xiao Yun suddenly felt dizzy and whispered softly, "Did they just want to protect you?" "Protect me?" Han Yi smiled and said, "I think you're trying to harm me." Fortunately, that knife didn't hit. If it did, we would all be ruined. Do you really have a brain? Faced with Han Yi's sarcastic remarks, Xiao Yun couldn't help but get angry. "I remember you took the knife out first," he said. "I'll go out with a knife, that's to scare them, but you're serious." Han Yi angrily said something. Of course he was scary. As a fraudster, of course he knew that if you were asked for debt, either you would run away or you would be a bit tough. The weaker you are, the worse the situation will be. This is all about exercising your acting skills with your life. He can't be NG, just NG will be over. As he spoke, he suddenly felt a pain in his shoulder and rubbed it, wondering, by the way, do all your ladies have such great strength? As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Yun's pretty face was burning with fire, and he hesitated and said, "That's because your strength is too weak." "How much strength can I have as a weak woman?" "Hey, you're still a weak woman. If you really hit that chubby guy with the force of throwing a firewood knife, you'll have to split him in half." "I think it's strange. The ladies of the family are so scared that they throw knives at their own feet. You're better off throwing them at someone else's head." That flying knife, let alone Wang Bao, Han Yi still has lingering fear. Xiao Yun really can't stand it anymore. In the past, Han Yi respected her very much and wished he could be a bodhisattva to offer sacrifices. It could even be said that he would fight wherever he goes. But today, Han Yi is full of sarcasm and ridicule. If there is no bridal chamber, it will be like this. He felt that he had been deceived, so he couldn't help but feel angry and embarrassed. He rushed forward and pointed at Han Yi, saying, "Han Yi, I have tolerated it in every way possible. Don't be ignorant. It seems that this is her true face. Oh my God, is this the legendary house leak that happened to rain continuously at night? It's over, it's over. Currently, my body may not be able to beat her. With all these moves, I won. Others will say I hit women without grace, but I lost. Others will say I can't even beat women, without face, really relying on it. I'm at a loss no matter how much." Han Yi really felt a bit guilty. After all, this woman is the one who dares to kill. She waved her hand and said weakly, all right, I'm not in the mood to talk to you about this now. Let's get Shan Ji's funeral done first. There's no way, in order to save face and maintain demeanor, I can only bring out Brother Shan." As expected, upon hearing this, Xiao Yun didn't say a word anymore. After all, Han Dashan had not been buried yet. The young couple remained speechless all night, with one sleeping inside and the other outside. It's better to dream in different beds than to dream in the same bed. So, both husband and wife had a dream of becoming rich. The next morning, with the help of a group of villagers, Han Dashan was finally buried, and it is unknown whether it was an. The funeral is very simple. After all, without money, it's difficult for you to get complicated, and the villagers are also very enthusiastic, so it was solved in one morning. Han Yi also has nothing to repay these villagers, so he can only bow and thank them. Yang Lin, who had the best relationship with Han Dashan, wanted to organize everyone to help Han Yi repay his debt, but as soon as he started, he was in a state of poverty. Yang Lin also knew the situation everyone was in. In fact, he himself was not a mud bodhisattva crossing the river, and his own life was in danger, so he had to give up. Han family. Xiao Yun sat on the couch in the front room, lost in thought, unable to see the future in her eyes. With a soft bang, Han Yi walked out from inside and threw a bundle next to Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun glanced at the bundle on the bed, then at Han Yi, his eyes full of confusion. Han Yi said lightly, "You go." The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works on the internet are all original. Mobile users are requested to read. Chapter 7. Dark Cuisine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Another nearly 4,000-word chapter, seeking recommendations, collections, and clicks. I'm going. Where am I going? Xiao Yun looked at Han Yi with a surprised expression on his face, as if looking at flowers in mist. Han Yi said solemnly, "No matter where you go, don't stay here anyway." Xiao Yunfeng's eyes widened in surprise and he said, "Are you driving me away? You can also think that I'm asking you to leave." Han Yi smiled lightly and pretended to be relaxed, saying, "You have also seen the situation of my Han family now. You are just suffering here. As the saying goes, when a disaster comes, you can fly separately. I can understand this, and I will never blame you because you don't belong here and don't need to stay here. So you should go." Xiao Yun frowned and glanced at Han Yi with a slanted gaze, "So in your heart, I am this kind of person." Han Yi smiled and shook his head, saying, "I'm not in the mood to care about what kind of person you are. From now on, we have no further relationship, okay?" As he spoke, he saw Xiao Yun staring at him without saying a word and said, "What are you looking at me for? Actually, I know that you married into our Han family just to repay us. Don't deny that. Han Yi weighs a few pounds and a few taels. I know from my heart that I am even worse than my father. Would you like me? I don't believe it myself, but fortunately we haven't had any relationship, and our Han family doesn't owe you anything. We can get together and part ways." Because he has memories of the past Han Yi, in his memory, Xiao Yun and Han Yi are actually more like a pair of siblings. Whether it was the tone of their conversation or the way they got along, they were all in the same way as elders and juniors. There was no romantic relationship between men and women, and he didn't know whether Han Yi was innocent or deliberately pretending to be ignorant. But now Han Yi can clearly feel it, and he doesn't understand why Xiao Yun agreed to marry Han Yi, a soft-skinned and parasitic person. Xiao Yun should understand Han Yi very well. This kind of man is definitely not suitable for entrusting for life, so after thinking about it, only gratitude can explain. It should be noted that in the past, Han Yi was notorious for being weak, without any burden, with collapsed shoulders. No matter how poor and difficult Han Dashan was, he still carried this family and raised Han Yi with his own hands. He was a very responsible man, even though he was just a farmer, he could definitely be said to be towering. This is something that even now Han Yi admires Han Dashan very much. He asks himself that he cannot do it, so he feels close to himself. If he were a woman, he would rather choose Han Dashan as an old cow than Han Yi as a tender grass, because in the past, Han Yi could not give anyone anything. Sense of security. As an experienced Feng Yu expert, how could Han Yi not understand Xiao Yun's psychology? To put it bluntly, it's self-abandonment. Xiao Yun remained silent, staring blankly at Han Yi. After a while, he suddenly picked up his bag and walked outside. This is a wise move. Han Yi didn't give it either, he just said, "Take care," sincerely. After Xiao Yun left, he turned around and went back to the inner room. It's really a world of tricks. We got married a few days ago, and in the blink of an eye, one went left and the other went right. Han Yi lay in bed, pillows in both hands, legs crossed, staring blankly at the dilapidated roof, and began to ponder how to repay the debt. In fact, he had no confidence in his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been in a hurry to let Xiao Yun leave. He was also worried that if he couldn't repay the money, Wang Bao would definitely not let Xiao Yun go. This was the last thing he wanted to see. Such a good cabbage, he wouldn't be able to protect Xiao Yun himself, nor could he let the pig do it. However, he really couldn't protect Xiao Yun, so letting him go was the best choice. Another point is that Wang Bao's goal is Xiao Yun, and if Xiao Yun leaves, his pressure will naturally be much lower. What should I do? Han Yi couldn't help but recall how he made money in the past. Collect protection fees. Please, just my body, if I don't receive protection fees, I'll be grateful. Continue to deceive. I can't even figure out what kind of environment and situation it is now, how to cheat, and my scams are not applicable here. There are antiques everywhere, and there is no one involved in finance. Forget it, forget it. Anyway, I'm the only one right now. It's not a big deal to hang my head in the air. Let's take a nap first, it'll save us at least one lunch. Han Yi fell asleep thinking about it. After all, he was indeed tired enough, both physically and mentally. I fell asleep until it was dark, fully unleashing the spirit of, the wind blows on the eggshell, the wife goes away and the bird is peaceful. When he woke up, he suddenly noticed dim candlelight shining from the front room. What person? While Han Yi was speaking, he had already jumped out of bed and quietly walked out. Coincidentally, he saw someone walking in, which was Xiao Yun who had left in the afternoon. Why are you still here? Han Yi looked surprised. Xiao Yun looked at Han Yi and said with a gentle smile, "Husband. Don't call me husband, I feel a headache. You should call me Han Yi instead." Han Yi waved his hand, his face resolute. He never had any plans to get married before, and of course, he doesn't have any now. This is all because he was born into a broken family. His parents divorced when he was very young, because his father had someone outside. Later, he followed his mother, but unfortunately, her life was very difficult because she was both a father and a mother. In the end, she fell ill due to labor and died of illness when he was very young. From then on, he wandered around the world and engaged in some petty theft activities. Although his father was still alive, he had a stubborn personality and would rather die than go to find him. Moreover, his father had a different family. Fortunately, he had a great talent in deceiving others, so he did not starve to death on the streets. However, it is unclear whether he had been wandering in society since childhood and had no one to discipline him. He also went to nightclubs to cheat at a young age, or whether his personality is similar to his father whom he hates very much. After making money, he is also quite charming. After all, in that environment, it is difficult to grow a lotus flower. This creates an extremely contradictory psychology, as he witnessed the pain and difficulties of his mother's divorce with his own eyes, which is an indelible memory. He also saw that he had the same virtue, and his profession was also not well known. Therefore, he believed that whoever he married would harm him. He did not want to create another woman's tragedy, so he simply did not want to end it. Since he became wealthy, he has never lacked women around him, with various skin colors and nationalities, but they are all the kind of people who play outside. With money, everyone can use it together, and happiness is good. His requirements for women are just 8 words. You love me, you wish, good to get together, good to separate. Emotions are not something to talk about, whether you are a fairy or a saint. His partner Pete Zhu described his psychology as a cancer that never dies and is basically difficult to change. But precisely because of this, as a fraudster with no emotional color, it is definitely very terrifying, which is also an important factor that has created him. Didn't you leave? Why did you come back again? Did you forget to take something? Han Yi appeared extremely unhappy about Xiao Yun's return and departure. In his opinion, Xiao Yun doesn't like himself, and he doesn't want to have such a wife. Good gatherings and good breakups are certainly the best outcome. Being together won't be easy for both of us, why bother with each other? Han Yi, you have enough. Xiao Yun suddenly shouted angrily, pointing at Han Yi and cursing, I know you have a weak personality, but I didn't expect you to be so weak. Have you ever seen anyone who is a bit difficult drive away their wife? As a man, shouldn't you take on this family? Han Yi couldn't help but say, I haven't seen such a man before, but I've seen many who sell their wives to pay off debts. Not to mention ancient times, he has seen many people selling their wives to pay off debts in later generations, and many young ladies in nightclubs came this way. Xiao Yun's face froze for a moment, and then he snorted, I'm afraid you don't even have the courage. Han Yi nodded and said, yes, I don't have the courage. Why did you run back foolishly for a man like me? It's really hard for me to understand your behavior. Although I am a woman of high status, Xiao Yun also knows how to repay kindness. Xiao Yun said arrogantly, you were right. The Han family doesn't owe me anything, but I owe you a lot. Uncle Han hoped that I could marry you, not only because he wanted me to take care of you, but also because of me. I never intended for you to repay it. You don't have to worry about this, I have my own way. Do you have a way? You told me earlier, it scared me all afternoon. Han Yi patted his chest and breathed a sigh of relief. This man is really not promising. Xiao Yun muttered to himself and said coldly, let's eat. As he spoke, he placed the earthy gray bowl in his hand on the low table on the bed. The Tang Dynasty bed was truly versatile, except for not having the function of a thatched cottage, everything else was done on the bed, including the bedroom. Speaking of eating, Han Yi suddenly felt extremely hungry and quickly sat down on the couch, saying, hurry up and bring some bowls and chopsticks. Take it yourself. Wow. As a wife, shouldn't you help her husband with the dishes? Han Yi said indignantly, rubbing her thighs. Xiao Yun was furious and said, Han Yi, you're really shameless. I'll tell you, I'll help you pay off your debt and leave. From then on, there will be no further involvement. As long as you can repay this debt, I can help you with the dishes and chopsticks. It seems that the angrier Xiao Yun became, the happier Han Yi became. He jumped out of bed, took out a pair of bowls and chopsticks, and sat back on his bed. Looking at the table, he saw that the Tang Dynasty dinner was really simple. It was just a bowl, filled with 3 or 4 things of different shapes, gray-green and gray-green. Is this a wild vegetable cake? With the help of his memory, Han Yi finally recited the name of the dish, which he couldn't tell with his eyes. It was completely unrecognizable. The wild vegetable cake is made from wild vegetables and glutinous rice. Xiao Yun ignored him. After asking for trouble, Han Yi was too lazy to say anything. He was indeed hungry and picked up a wild vegetable cake and stuffed it into his mouth. Nausea. At this entrance, Han Yi suddenly vomited out, not knowing what the taste was. Even the profound Chinese language couldn't describe it, but in short, it was very unpleasant. Wow, what are you making? Why is it so unpleasant? Because he was unconscious for a few days, and yesterday was the food brought by the Yang Lin family. Although it was not delicious, he could still make do with it. He didn't have high requirements for eating. Instant noodles are a meal, and delicacies are also a meal, but this pancake is really unbearable, it's just torture. Xiao Yun's rosy vermilion lips opened slightly, bit a small portion, and slowly chewed, saying, "I think it's quite delicious." Han Yi looked silly and said, "It's impossible." "It's quite delicious." Xiao Yun took another bite and casually said, "Is it because your illness hasn't healed yet and your taste buds haven't recovered?" "Is that so?" Han Yi was a bit confused. Xiao Yun said again, "Do you like to eat or not? Anyway, there isn't much food left at home. Don't come to me if you're hungry later." "That's right, we can't waste it, otherwise how would we spend tonight?" After pondering for a while, Han Yi suddenly jumped off the bed and brought a large bowl of water from the kitchen. He crushed all the wild vegetable cakes and poured them into the water, then gulped them into his stomach, feeling that there was still a bitter taste of soil inside. It was like drinking traditional Chinese medicine. Just as he finished drinking, Han Yi suddenly had a bulge in his cheeks and quickly covered his mouth with one hand, really pushing himself in. "It's really disgusting, I don't even have an appetite." Xiao Yun threw the remaining small part of his hand into the bowl and said lightly, "Are you finished?" Han Yi dared not speak anymore and closed his mouth and let out a "hmm." Xiao Yun stopped talking and cleared up the dishes on the table as he walked towards the outside. "Whew." After a while, Han Yi let out a soft breath and muttered to himself, "Has my taste buds deteriorated to this extent? Ouch." Han Yi suddenly covered his stomach with one hand, his eyes bulging outwards. "Isn't that right? Is there something wrong with my intestines too? I can't help it anymore." Han Yi quickly jumped off the bed and hurriedly walked outside, but just as he passed a corner, Yu Guang suddenly noticed a beautiful figure standing next to a large willow tree, with lotus-like jade arms supporting the trunk, and the other hand pressed against his chest, bowing his head and spitting loudly. "Wow! It's not that I have a taste problem and my intelligence has been overwhelmed, but this woman can still tolerate it. She can even taste like abalone from such an unpleasant thing. It's a waste of talent not to be a scammer." Han Yi suddenly realized, feeling both angry and amused in his heart. He had played with an eagle for 10 years in his past life and never missed it. At the beginning of this life, he was pecked in the eye by the eagle. What a retribution!